It's no secret that we're in a really bad society right now. Tis I, by the way, I'm King Chuck. And, you know, we are in a really shitty society right now. We have a president that only cares about himself and himself only. He's lied. He got back into the presidency because of a lie. He lied to us about tips on, no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime. And of course now restaurants are closing left and right because of high overhead. Up in Elk Rapids, where I grew up, there was a really promising restaurant up there called The Foundry. They just closed this past week. The owner, word has it, had it that the owner had a lot of overhead, and of course Elk Rapids is just one of those communities that's not very cheap to live in. Trust me, because when I was a kid, when my mom and dad divorced, my mom tried to find a house for me and her in the Elk Rapids school system, and we ended up in one of the poorest parts of the area, unfortunately, because that's all she could afford. So, because, for, 30 years ago, for a plot of land in Elk Rapids, it was $40,000. And I would imagine that's way more than that now. So, but and of course Elk Rapids, because now it's a town whose average age is 60, it's unaffordable. Everything's unaffordable up there. Because you got all these hoity-toity towns that have a lot of old people and retirees and well-to-do people. And then on top of that, you also have, some of the poor white trash towns like Mancy-Tucky or Methalona or Mansalona, as I like to call it. And the problem is that, I once knew people from Mansalona. They spent, lived in a trailer, and they had another trailer in their backyard with its roof caved in because I guess it was a really shoddily built trailer, for all I know. I mean, trailers have never been safe havens for anybody. But anyway, I saw a 700 Club envelope on their coffee table one time. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to spend your money on these right-wing assholes because, you don't mind being lied to and gaslit and all that, well, there you go. That's what these people are all about. They believe in lies. And then on top of all that, yes, we're stuck with Trump. Gas prices aren't really going down at all. And so, sometimes we just need, yes, let's not forget my beloved Detroit Tigers. We lost. We are now out of the playoffs. Fingers crossed tonight. The Lions will whip the living shit out of the Chiefs. Fingers crossed. Of course, I hate the Chiefs. They're, especially the family that owns them, the Clark family. They're a bunch of, what is it, Clark? Or I'm trying to remember their last name, but anyway, they're all a bunch of right-wing assholes, Trumpers, and all that shit. But anyway, we need good news. We need good, happy news. And I got some for you. The Parents Television Council has filed for bankruptcy, and they are now in the process of liquidation. So they announced that they were like $82,000 in debt or something like that. So the problem is that donations to them have really gone down over the years, and for good reason. So let me explain to you. It was founded in 1995 by a guy named Brent Bozell. And, the guy looked like an old goat. An old billy goat. And it's like every time I saw him, I wanted to go, bah, bah. He always looked angry. And this guy was supposed to be Mr. Family Friendly. So he rounded up a bunch of well-known celebrities who all partitioned for more family-friendly content on TV. Steve Allen was one of them. And word even had it that when Steve Allen died of a heart attack, and when he died, just hours before he died, he was on a very angry rant about Howard Stern. And it's like, dude, if you don't like Howard Stern, change the goddamn channel. Oh, man. Yeah, this was the guy who, it's like Frank Zappa performed. Yeah, I remembered Frank Zappa made his first TV appearance on the Steve Allen Show back in the 60s. And Allen even told him, don't ever perform on stage ever again. Yeah, because Steve was, Frank Zappa was actually playing a bicycle. He got this drumstick, and he, had an old bicycle on its back, upside down, and he would take the drumstick and just click it against the rings of the bicycle. And Steve was like, yeah, don't ever perform in public ever again. Yeah, whatever, dude. Of course, Steve, Frank would. Frank was awesome. I mean, he was such a First Amendment junkie like me. He was definitely one on top of his game. So anyway, Steve Allen was a part of this group, and so was Charlton Heston. So, and I've told you this story many times. So one of the PTC's targets, of course, was Howard Stern. They wanted Howard off the air big time because Howard was bad. Oh, they wanted his radio show off the air. When Howard had his late night TV show on Saturday nights, they decided. So the PTC went, attacked all the sponsors on the show, and. In a lot of cases, a lot of TV stations ended up dropping the show. Of course, 9 and 10, where I lived, up in Traverse City, they dropped Howard Stern for infomercials. And guess who one of them was? For the National Rifle Association, starring Charlton Heston, who himself was a member of the Parents Television Council. And the sad truth was, Charlton Heston was supposed to be family friendly. He was supposed to be a Christian because, he made that move, 10 Commandments. And, sadly, when, the real Charlton Heston was exposed when Bowling for Columbine came out. Michael Moore came to him, and he, of course, had that, he had a picture of a young girl who was murdered by a gun. A little boy who took a gun to his school and shot him. And, the tragic truth was his mother was working 80 hours a week. She had no time for him. And, sadly, she couldn't afford, she was on welfare and food stamps. And, yeah, if you ever saw the movie, it really talked about, it's like you look at people who are on welfare, and tragically, a lot of these people actually do have to work to get any type of aid, which is too bad. And I know, and it was sad that this little boy ended up in a bad environment with drugs and guns everywhere, and, and the tragic truth is guns kill people. And not violent TV shows. I remembered when I was young, MTV was forced to move Beavis and Butthead from 7 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock, 10:30. And it was all because of some stupid mother allowed her kid to stay home alone and watch Beavis, while she was probably getting drunk out in the bar. And it's like, this is another reason, what happened was the boy ended up burning the home down, and it killed his little sister. And the sad truth was, the family didn't even have cable, and yet all these religious nuts blamed MTV. They blamed MTV for Beavis and Butthead in telling kids, oh, it's cool to burn down things. And it's like, the truth of the matter, folks, is if you got kids at home, you got to be there. It's like this, and this is why I don't have a lot of respect for single moms. Sorry, I don't. So, anyway, here's the rest of the story. So the Parents Television Council made a lot of headlines over the years. They wanted Howard Stern off the air. They wanted, they were really, and of course, the biggest headline was Janet Jackson's infamous nip slip at the Super Bowl back in 2003. And they were fighting real hard to get, the FCC to jack up their indecency charges. And, what is it now? $500,000. And, of course, it created a witch hunt. Howard Stern was and get this, Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, they were not charged with anything. It was a mistake. And yet the media went after people like Howard Stern real hard. This is why he moved to satellite radio, and he took 30 million people with him. And, and ditto with TV shows. People love edgy TV shows with profanity and nudity, and I mean, this is why, violence. This is why shows like Yellowstone are smash hit series on streaming. People, and yet, you couldn't put Yellowstone on on regular TV. And the reason why is because of its content. I mean, if it was on terrestrial TV, it would, all the nudity would be cut, all the profanity would be muted, and of course they would probably have to edit out some of the violence. Of course, there was a lot of bloody violence on the show. And, that's why, nowadays you look at regular TV, and on Saturday nights, I've noticed that they just repeat what they aired during the week on Saturday nights because so few people watch TV anymore on Saturday nights. And the only shows that actually get ratings on regular TV anymore are probably sporting events like the Super Bowl or Monday Night Football. The point is, folks, as I've said recently, regarding Jimmy Kimmel, let's remember what happened. Allegedly, the reason why both of these media companies, Sinclair and Nexstar, the reason why they put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air was because ABC was threatening to pull sporting events from their stations because of the fact that they were cherry picking Kimmel off their stations. And ABC put the foot down. And, sporting events make a lot of money for TV stations and the networks. And, of course, here in Michigan, ABC carried a lot of, they carried a very important Tigers game. That was the game that where they beat Cleveland and advanced further into the playoffs against Seattle. And of course, there was even a Monday Night Football recently where they played Baltimore, and of course, we creamed the living crap out of them. The reality, folks, is that because of the groups like the Parents Television Council and the American Family Association, and of course, here in Michigan, the American Decency Association, they tell us, well, we need to protect children. We need to protect children against smut. And I'm like, okay. Charlton Heston was an ardent member of the Parents Television Council, but yet, like I said, when Michael Moore showed him a picture of a young girl who was murdered by a gun, he walked away. He didn't care. And that's how right-wingers think. It's important to own. Yeah, it's like right here in Grand Rapids. there was a church here in our town that made headlines because they were raffling an AR-15 to one of its parishioners. New Chapel, that was the name of the church. And the church made headlines because it turned out that their youth pastor, their former youth pastor, was a fucking pedophile who prayed after little boys. And I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly, folks, this is why I don't go to church on Sunday. Too much scandal. Okay? And that was the reason why I quit the last church I went to. It was because there was a kid there. I wouldn't call him a kid. He was a little bit younger than I was. But he had mental problems, and he wanted me to do everything from harass his ex-girlfriend's sister to give him $500 because he, had a piece of shit car that needed work done. And he said that once he got a good paying job, he'd pay me back. Folks, I drew the line. And and it's like on King of the Hill, Buck Strickland once said, what was it? When he shut down Strickland Propane. Sometimes, in order to save the horse, to save the horse's foot, you gotta kill the horse. And that's how I looked at it. And what's sad was that there were a lot of people who asked me, where were you? Where are you, Chuck? We missed you at our church. And I had to tell them I couldn't deal with this guy's drama anymore. I didn't go to church to experience drama. I went to church because I wanted my life to be better. And tragically, even though this church was, one of the more progressive-minded churches in Grand Rapids, they were a church that didn't go around hating gays. I mean, they allowed gays in their congregation. They basically, it was a safe space. And that's what I liked about the church. But unfortunately, they also told us that we needed to protect the gullible. And this guy had a liking for me. So I quit. The reality, folks, is simple. The Parents Television Council simply made television boring. And, younger people like myself turned to streaming. And it's the same thing with radio. I mean, Grand Rapids, what I cringe over the fact that WCSG is one of the top rated stations in this market. And part of the reason why is because they're a family-friendly station. Where, as a matter of fact, I was at, I'm trying to remember where I was yesterday. But I was at a business and they were playing WCSG. And I was like, ugh, turn this shit off. So, the point is, but yeah, GRD actually has pretty good ratings because, they do have a very successful morning show for Reber and Hot Wings. Even though those two schmucks, all they do is pretty much rip off everything that Howard Stern has done. And, Eric Zane, ever since they fired him, it was like the show has become kind of a cesspool of stupidity. And of course they put Kelly Cheese on a pedestal. I guess she's going through a divorce too. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's like a lot of people, I've heard some people who have said that Freeburg and Hot Wings without Eric Zane is just sad and boring. But then again, they say the same thing about Howard Stern, since he quietly fired Artie Lang because of the fact that Artie had a suicide attempt. And Howard didn't want to talk about it. Of course, Artie dealt with drug issues as well. And Artie blamed some of his drug issues on Howard because he didn't take full credit for a lot of the stuff that he wrote. But anyway, the point is, folks, is that I still prefer Howard Stern over Free Beer and Hot Wings because the show's still edgy. It's still funny. Yeah, I miss the strippers. Yes, I miss the porn stars and the Sibian and all that. But the point is, Howard still has a higher standard versus a lot of these really boring radio shows out there. And the reality is, it's the Parents Television Council who stood up and made the FCC more prudish because of what happened. You know, even the Supreme Court ruled that what Janet Jackson did, what happened between Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, it was just a fucking accident. Oh my God. And now we have a president who wants to pretty much eliminate the First Amendment. I mean, we've seen what has happened with Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel. It was all threats, all because of the lies that the right wing spread about Jimmy, and the fact that, Jimmy, he said that about Charlie Kirk. No, he didn't attack Charlie Kirk. He attacked Trump for the fact that Trump said that, when he was asked about Charlie Kirk, he went on and rambled about the Rose Garden Club, which, by the way, is a big waste of taxpayer money. You see, folks, my good friend Dave Barber, the late great Dave Barber, said it best about these right-wingers. They only care about the peanuts while the elephants walk by. They don't care about you or me or anyone else. They're all about, we need to shut down strip clubs. We need to curb internet pornography. And of course, one of the things about Project 2025 was they want to get rid of pornography. We even have this, this representative over in Oxford, Shapiro. He wants to outlaw internet pornography here in Michigan. And I'm like, good luck with that. If Whitmer passes that law, then I'll give her a tongue wagging she'll never forget. Because, Whitmer can be a little bit of a centralist. Although, in my opinion, in my lifetime, she's the best governor this state's ever had. But we've seen what's happened with other states, like Texas, like Indiana. Folks, red states are notorious for the fact that we give them a lot of stuff because they're some of the poorest states in America. And yet they want to get rid of pornography, all because in their mind, it's terrible, it's nasty, it's gross. Two people having consensual sex in front of a camera. We can't have that. And you want to know something? I looked at my first pornographic image when I was like 13, 14 years old. It didn't have a negative effect on me. Hell, I was at that stage when I had a billion questions for my parents, and they all gave me the right answers. That's what parents are supposed to do. They're supposed to tell kids that sex, between two consenting adults is perfectly normal and healthy. And yet, these right-wingers all want to tell you, it's not. No sex before marriage, because Jesus said that fornication is bad. And yet, bear in mind that Jesus talked about fornication in the same verse, 1 Corinthians 6:9, where he, in some versions, he basically outlaws not pornography, but homosexuality. And yet some versions of the Bible, they don't have a term for it. Some versions of the Bible, they say, gay prostitution. Others say, being effeminate. The reality is sometimes you got to understand something, that the Bible is a good book to help us with a lot of things in life, but sometimes, it can be full of shit. Sorry, not sorry. The thing, and it's like sometimes you got to question moral authority. To me, no sex before marriage is like buying a car without driving it first. It's true. It's like, what if you decide not to look at your partner's private parts before marriage to inspect who they are, and then you finally marry that person and you find out that they're transgender? Uh-oh. Yeah, I actually, there was even a German car commercial 35 years ago. Man marries a beautiful woman. And they go to the hotel room. The woman announces that before they do it, she has to go pee. And then the guy looks in the bathroom, and wearing her wedding dress, the woman is peeing standing up. And there was a caption on the screen: don't ever buy a car before driving it first. Yeah. So that's exactly the reason why. I mean, we need to, sex before marriage, I think, is quite important. It's like, that's one thing about moral authority you got to question. But anyway, but you see, folks, the Parents Television Council did their job. And sometimes I'll even go to the American Decency Association's website. And they don't campaign against morning shock jocks anymore. They don't campaign against TV shows that stream. They don't do that anymore because they did their job. They screwed up free media to the point that you actually have to spend money to watch a good TV show or listen to a radio show. I mean, even though, there's a lot of great podcasts out there that you can listen to for free, I should say, although some of them do encourage you to spend some money on them, support their sponsors, and maybe even, buy a t-shirt off of them. Midas Touch does this because, they have no financial backing from anybody that I know of. And some people, and I know some right-wingers will cry George Soros, and I don't know, folks. I mean, but seriously, the right wing needs to realize that they're losing. They won the battle of getting everything good off free TV and radio off. And now, more and more people are, this is why more and more people are switching over to the internet to get what they want when it comes to television or even radio, because the free media doesn't know how to wipe their own ass anymore. They're afraid that all these groups are going to come out of nowhere and attack them. But guess what? They don't exist anymore. And they're dying off. Of course, I should point out that Bill Johnson, the guy who started the American Decency Association, he's like 80 years old now, and I don't even know if he's, they do a whole lot anymore. I know that one of their biggest donors was the Prince family and Edgar and Elsa Prince. I think that organization actually disintegrated because I know Edgar died 30 years ago, and I don't know if Elsa's still alive or not. I think she is, but, she's in her 90s. But the reality, folks, is that I think a lot of younger people, we have evolved as a people. And we have to understand that these groups that wanted Family Guy off the air, Howard Stern off the air, and all these other shows that are edgy, they had their way, And now the question is, what's going to happen now? Because now the big four networks, they don't know the hole from their ass. And sometimes they just simply put these shows that they have and, in development, they just put it on streaming, on their streaming services because, they don't have to worry about the FCC. But then again, now that the Parents Television Council is going out of business, what's going to happen now? And I think a lot of younger people don't write to the FCC anymore. They don't care. And yet, listenership to terrestrial radio is going down as well. And nobody cares. The point is, folks, is that the First Amendment is sacred. And over the years, we've seen so many people get censored because of their views and because they use words that people are like, he said that. Oh. And yet we have a president, Donald Trump, who says the word shit all the time. And those same people that wanted to curb profanity on TV, they love him. Talk about hypocrisy. Oh, man. Folks, the reality is that I think most people have moved on. And, let's face the facts. Most of the profanities I've learned in life, I did not learn from television or movies. I learned it from the schoolyard. And like I said, the first time I saw an act of full-blown sex, it was in one of my uncle's porno mags. And guess what? Guess how many women I've raped? 0. Guess how many women I've done unconsensual stuff with? 0. The point is, folks, I know right from wrong. But, but here's the thing. The groups like the Parents Television Council needed to learn that there's things in life, if people want to be pro-family, how about doing the following? How about lowering taxes on the middle class and making the wealthy pay those taxes? How about lowering healthcare costs for everyone? And most importantly of all, universal healthcare. We've needed it for decades. Countries with universal healthcare pay lower costs on healthcare than we do. And because of Trump and his stupid bill, that shit's going to go up. We need to raise the minimum wage. It's been $7.25 an hour or whatever it is for forever and ever. We need to fix our life. Stop worrying about bad words and images on TV. We should have thought about this years ago. If you don't like, folks, there's parental locks on TVs. Parents need to learn how to use them. If they are so fucking concerned about what they see on TV. But, things are only going to get shittier because of Trump, in my opinion. We need to realize that censoring porn and bad things on TV ain't going to fix the economy. And as a matter of fact, fewer people are having kids anymore because having a kid is one of the most expensive. It's turned into a luxury. Hell, I remembered when I was a kid, I was crying a lot because my parents wouldn't give me this, that, or anything else. I even remembered when I was a kid, when I was a little boy, my dad would take me straight to Sears in the mall instead of us walking through the mall because he didn't want me to go to the toy store. They didn't want me to be spoiled. They were the types of people that only deserved something if you deserved it. If you were a good boy. But if you got into trouble at school or in life, then you don't deserve it. That's what they taught me. But yet I was always getting punished because of what other kids did or what other people's opinions were. It's like Matt Hanlon, who ran the Citadel Broadcasting Company here in Grand Rapids into the ground in KLQ. He hated Howard Stern, and he came up with bullshit excuses to take him off the air. Like, Bill Simonson, he has a $75,000 contract, and, we think BBL needed the money. Yeah, that was his excuse. The truth was, I think he was in bed with the DeVos family. And the DeVosses, they played a huge role in getting rid of strip clubs in Grand Rapids. And today, look at Grand Rapids. I mean, I'm 44 years old, and I hate to break it to you. It sucks that I have no girlfriend because I don't know why. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. Maybe I'm not thin enough. Maybe I'm not tall enough. I don't know. But the reality is, I love strip clubs. And it sucks that they closed all the strip clubs because of how some old lady named Judy Rose felt about them. Folks, all I can say is, look, these old people who gave their money to these groups, they're dying off. And younger people, we grew up hating them. I mean, if you're somebody younger than I am and you gave your money to the Parents Television Council, chances were that you were a total asshole for all I know. And there weren't many younger celebrities who were on their celebrity panel. I mean, here's a small, off the top of my head, of course, I mentioned Charlton Heston, Steve Allen, Joe Lieberman was one. Senator Sam Brownback from Kansas, who, by the way, was also one of the worst governors in America. Billy Ray Cyrus was on the list, and of course, you look at what happened with Miley. Of course, there's a billion different nude photos of her on the internet. And then C. Dolores Tucker was on the list. She wanted to get rid of rap music. I called her C. Dolores Fucker because of that. Pat Boone was on the list. Of course, I remembered Pat got into trouble with the Trinity Broadcasting Network because, he had a show on TBN. And, he got fired from TBN because of the fact that he recorded a heavy metal album. Plus the fact that he was also good neighbors with Ozzy Osbourne. It's amazing that Pat Boone is one of the last surviving original. He recorded all these stupid covers of R&B songs because there were so many stations down south that refused to play black music. Yeah. Yeah, what else? Yeah, who else was on the list? A lot of these people all had shows on the PAX network. And I remembered when the Janet Jackson nip slip happened. Somebody pointed this out, that a lot of the people on the PTC panel were all had shows on the PAX network. Of course, the PAX network is now ION. So the story was, somebody pointed out, well, these people wanted family-friendly TV. The PAX network only had like a 0.3 of a share among viewers. And, nobody was watching it. Nobody. And, because of this, they ended up bankrupt and became the ION channel. So that's what I'm trying to say here, folks. The point is, ratings don't lie. If a show has a 0.3 rating, then nobody's watching. And you can't force people to like something. If you don't like something, change the goddamn channel. That's how life works. That's the way life works. I mean, sometimes even Howard Stern pisses me off. Not too long ago, he had the lead singer of Maroon 5 on his show. I fucking hate Maroon 5. So I turned it off and listened to something else. You see, folks, this is why the Parents Television Council is going out of business. Nobody fucking cares anymore. If you want family-friendly entertainment, then watch it. Okay? There's a million different TV channels out there. And some of them do cater to families. Even though these family-friendly channels have an average audience of like 60, 70-year-old women. Okay? So there you go. So, Parents Television Council, good riddance. And I'm hoping the same will happen to the parents, groups like the American Family Association, and I know Focus on the Family, their founder, he died recently. Good riddance to him. I hope Bill Johnson will kick the bucket real soon too. I think he's like 80 years old now. Yeah, he was the guy responsible for really hitting Howard hard in Grand Rapids. Yeah, what he did was he hired mostly people with low incomes and SSI people. What he would do is pay them to write letters to advertisers. And one of the advertisers admitted that they got two of the same letter from Bill Johnson's people. And one person even said, yeah, this Bill Johnson, he's paying me like 10 cents a letter. And I'm like, yeah, and look at Howard today. And I'm pretty sure he's going to re-sign with Sirius XM pretty soon. I mean, it's like the media for a long time, they were trying to tell people that he's going off the air. I don't think so. I mean, you got to remember something, folks. Howard's father died at 99 years old, and his mom is 97. He'll probably be if he wants to stay on the air, let him. Okay? If he wants to, just do specials like Barbara Walters did, let him. But the point is, I hope that Howard will not fade into the darkness like Johnny Carson did. I mean, hell, David Letterman still makes appearances here and there. Of course, he even bashed Donald Trump for what he did to Jimmy Kimmel. Good for him. We need more freedom of thought. And I'm doing it now by doing this podcast. I'm in a parking lot right now doing this because, obviously I don't want my dad to shut things down for me. So anyway, I got to get going. Yeah, it's already 12:31. I've been doing this now for well over 40 minutes. So anyway, good day, good luck, and most importantly of all, folks, keep up the good fight and go Lions.